tonight's event. Again, thinking about the spiraling and sort of ripple effect, the talk on October 5th, where Camille Brown will be speaking and about her life as a dancer, well-known African-American dancer who was at Jacob's Pillow this summer. That will be October 5th here at the museum, all connecting to the work of and the important themes of this exhibition. And then the spiral effect, our education curative affairs, once Camille Brown was here, making inroads with the Springfield community, having the choreographer, dancer work with students in Springfield interested in photography, dance. Members of our dance department will go to Springfield. So this incredible spiral effect coming out of one beautiful gift. It's the dream of every museum, and this is happening here. And one other fortuitous spiral ripple is the two exhibitions, quite fortuitous. This is the intertwining of two art forms, performance and photography. Performance through the eyes of a photographer, opening September 21st, is a Korean, one of the most important Korean artists here, Kim Suja, whose performance is seen through the eyes of video. So, performance photography 50 years ago, performance video today. So, any of you wanting to find a thesis exhibition to write about? This is it. So, lots to think about, lots to hear tonight. Great things that are going to be touched upon. So, without further ado, I'm honored and thrilled to have Norton Owen from Jacob's Pillow, the Director of Preservation, and Paul Dennis, the Curator of the exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I want to say first that what we have planned for today is a very impromptu discussion, which is a little hair-raising. It's like doing a high-wire act, but I can't think of a better person to do it with than with Paul here. We've known each other for about 20 years since working together at the Lamone Company, and so I know that he has a storehouse of information, and wanted to keep it fresh by talking about some themes ahead of time, but really deciding that we would have a conversation, much as we do, you're looking scared there, much as we do in our pillow talks at Jacob's Pillow, where we have all kinds of discussions about different dance-related subjects, and where we were fortunate enough to do a program this summer on Barbara Morgan with 3 of Barbara Morgan's grandchildren present, and we're very fortunate to have Niels Morgan, grandson of Barbara Morgan, and his wife Cara here with us today. And of course, none of this would be happening without the generosity of the Morgan family. So once again, I want to echo how wonderful it is that what we're experiencing here all came out of an act of generosity, which we're still seeing many dividends from. I don't know that I really need to say too much in terms of introduction about Barbara Morgan. The photographs on these walls are just a few of the iconic images that continue to define the way that we think about early modern dance. And all of these photos were made within a very tight time frame, all between 1935 and 1945, which is extraordinary to think that something done that long ago could still have such power for us today. Even though Morgan's photographs have never been out of the public eye, I think it's also important to note just how widespread they were seen back in their day. When they were made, there was an exhibition of Morgan's work that traveled to over 150 colleges and universities in New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and the West Coast, New England, and all points in between. And her work was seen internationally as well, notably in a show of some 50 Morgan photographs that were organized in 1945 for the U.S. State Department. And so here we are today, some 7 decades later, and we can still see the power in these images. And I want to call attention to one in particular right by the door there of Jose de Limon in his Chaconne. And this is a solo that you yourself danced.
Yeah, I didn't perform it while I was in the Lamone Company at the time. It wasn't in the repertory, but while I was doing my MFA at Purchase College, one of the requirements is to present solo work at the end of the year, and Sarah Stackhouse taught and coached me in Chacon. Long and wonderful piece.
Yeah. Well, that must.
Did I say long?
You had seen it many times before you performed.
Yeah,
right?
I'd seen it. Again, because it wasn't in the rep, I'd seen it only on video. I did a little bit of research on it sometime prior, but it wasn't really until performing it that I started digging deep into some of the footage that was there. I went to the Lincoln Center Library for Performing Arts, looked at some of the footage that was present there, some of the photographs that were there of it as well. So yeah, that's the sort of research I did prior to actually performing it.
So the image that's there, the pose that Limon is in, is that a pose that is from the dance?
Yeah. The very opening of the dance starts off with this lunge and coming into a closed position, and I think that what's stunning about the photograph is how Barbara Morgan, focuses all the attention with the light right into the center of the figure, and then his head is above this dark, costume. So yeah, that's it really embodies the sense of this dance, the essence of the piece.
Well, it's so interesting that you say that, because what I understand from reading her own writings about her work and what she was attempting to do, there was a real desire not to do documentation. She wasn't trying to capture a lot of different elements of the dance. She was really trying to distill down to an image, or perhaps a series of images in some cases, that might somehow, in a still image, embody something that is, of course, by definition, a moving art.
Yeah, I think that was a really challenging, I believe that's a challenging thing for photographers, to be able to capture a moving body and be able to see the essence of what the dance is about. I remember reading how she would go and see rehearsals and see many times the same rehearsal, go back and sort of, like the word used, distill, come back and see some more of the rehearsals and figure out what is the image or images that were left in her mind that would encompass the whole dance. So you're right, it wasn't about documentation, let's take a photograph of each step or each pose, but trying to figure out what was the fundamental essence of the dance and capture it at that moment. I think, because Chacon has a number of them. I mean, I'm sure all of the pieces that are here, you can find numerous images that will capture it. And having done Chacon, there are numerous parts of that dance that could probably do it, but that's a perfect one.
Well, it's interesting too to think about how it's sort of a chicken and egg thing too, because once there is an image like that that is so powerful, then it tends to cement in our own mind that is, that's an important part of the dance. So then when we see the dance, if we have that picture in our minds, it becomes more emblematic somehow, and it sort of feeds on itself in a way of becoming more and more what we would envision to be the essence of the dance.
I remember, in fact, if I think back a little bit, even in my dance history course at Juilliard, I remember learning about Chacon and other Limon dances, of course, but if you ask me what image, I remember that photograph. Similar with, and I'm sure we'll talk about it with the kick,
back in the corner, the Graham kick from Letter to the World with her, which is the most, one of the most iconic ones with her,
the contraction going on down.
We can all do it.
We can all, and I remember, so even though I've never performed that piece, I remember that it's in my mind as part of it, and then seeing the work on video, go, oh, that's right, that's what it is.
Well, I think one of the memorable things about that kick photo also is that it really, as different than the Lamone photo, for instance, there's real motion in there.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it in the movement of the dress, so that, you know, you certainly are not thinking, oh, how long did she stand in that pose?
Right. Yeah. It begs to figure out like, how many takes would she have had to do,
right.
you know?
Right, exactly. Well, and some of the others, which I'm sure, you know, these incredible Pearl Primus photographs here too. And you've also had experience with the Pearl Primus repertory, right?
Yeah, I've danced one of her solos, Hard Time Blues, and I've coached two of the other pieces, Negro Speaks of Rivers and Strange Fruit. And so, yes, similarly, the work, just being able to capture the spirit, and, you know, the one of Pearl Primus sort of with her arms, and you can see the movement in the dress, and the spirit in her face, and it's
yeah. Well, one of the ones that I think is amazing is this second one here, where you don't see her face.
Right.
You don't really, all you see is an outstretched hand.
Yeah.
I mean, you see her silhouette then because of the extraordinary lighting. You get a sense of the silhouette from a different angle on the back wall. But that one I think is so remarkable. And, you know, we had at Jacob's Pillow this summer, we had an exhibit of Annie Leibovitz photographs as well, and there was one that was so reminiscent of this, and yet it turned out that it wasn't a direct evocation of it, but certainly Leibovitz has mentioned that Morgan was a great influence on her. And so, you know, maybe in the same way that Morgan used to see dances and then they would emerge somehow, the essence of them, I think the essence of this emerged in her own work. Because it was a photograph of Margie Gillis, very similar, where you only saw hands outstretched and a swirl of fabric.
I think that's amazing because, you know, I think, and I'm not a photographer, but if I'm taking a photograph of a dance, I want, you know, today you want to let's see the body, and to get the idea that the hand and the turn that's happening, it gives the viewer a sense of they've got to now invest themselves. What's going on in this, rather than being fed all the information? I think that's perfect.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody would go, oh, look, they cut out her face.
Right.
You know, you're intrigued by it, not and not frustrated by it. I think, of course, we're lucky to see it here among other photos of Pearl Primus, so we know what she looked like. But what we're able to see there is what she danced like, which is terrific.
And I think it also shows what was important for Pearl Primus, that it wasn't about Pearl, it wasn't about her, but what she wanted to talk about, what the message she wanted to give in her dancing. And I think that's part of the art that Barbara Morgan was able to identify, that it wasn't so much about the person themselves, but that says a lot, I think, about the intention of Pearl Primus as a performer. Yeah,
and yet, you know, one of the things that that certainly comes through for me in looking at these photos is even though there is a sense of maybe it's not all about me, but you certainly, these are real iconic people that we're seeing here too. And I mean, for instance, the one at the back wall there of Martha Graham's torso, you don't see her head, which is remarkable also. And yet she so captures the essence, you know, how better to capture Martha Graham than by seeing the torso.
The center of everything that she did.
Exactly. So it's, you know, I love that photograph, and there too, we don't see her, we don't even see her arms, we don't see her face, we don't see anything other than the fabric that encompasses her, the center of her body. Just remarkable. And of course the one next to it, of Lamentation, which also really captures that dance, and where we only see her face and the hands and that tube of fabric as well.
You know, how about then, on the opposite wall here, we've got Doris Humphrey, and all you do see is her face.
Yeah. The one of
With my red fires.
Yeah. The one
That the
matriarch.
the matriarch was, the focus was the face coming out of this darkness and being present and, you know, invading, so to speak, your space a bit.
Well, I think part of what that shows us too is that Morgan was not operating from a formula in any way, or from, oh yeah, there she is again, you know, photographing just the torso or
Right.
whatever. I mean, she really was going from what the dance was telling her to focus on.
Yes, yes.
I wonder, now this one here is from Passacaglia, which is another dance you have history with.
Yeah, we performed it here at the university last year, and it was restaged, and I helped Jennifer Scanlon restage the Passacaglia fugue here. Fantastic. It was, and I think one of the great things just for the students who are here in the dance department is to come back and see that the work that was created in the 30s and the 40s that are still relevant today. And we can see works, you know, the Cunningham, and as we might mention later on, that we're doing one of Merce Cunningham's you know, events later on this semester. So yeah, we did Passacaglia, and that again is the essence of what the dignity and the expansiveness of that dance was about.
And you do get a sense really of the movement here too, because her leg is, I suppose, on its way up.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a little bit of blurring there, which is great in a way that it gives you the sense that there is movement happening.
Right, right. But, you know, I remember as Jennifer was teaching us the dance last year, that the leg moving up, and yeah, wasn't to exhibit a kick or a high back mark. Yeah. It was to speak of an opening of the body and to the world, to speak to maybe a vision of into the future, or claiming a vision. And so that's what, it's not just a kick that she's trying to get the shot of. Right. Everything is going up and open. You know, I think that's a marvel of it.
And there are other, you can't see them at the moment, but after we're finished talking, you can look in this room, because here there are quite a few images from the Passacaglia, right? Yeah, also, and those are, tell a little bit about those, because those are really more, these are small prints like this. They're more like work images.
They were more like work images. These prints were, you know, from my understanding, Barbara Morgan was there taking photographs as they worked in the studio, and these were working photographs that were taken of Passacaglia. You'll see some of the loosely a sequence of events, really loosely, but you can see one thing sort of leading to another. You can see the duets that can go in, there's a sequence of the duets, and there are a few of them that may have been staged a little bit, because I remember looking at them saying, when we did Passacaglia, I remember taking some and putting it on the wall and trying to get the students to go, oh yeah, that's what they were doing. And not all of them,
you know, like, really from the dance?
Or they were combinations, you know, there were a few things that were definitely from the dance, but not, they didn't coincide. Right. And so we looked and said, okay, well, we do that, and we didn't do that together, so.
Were there lessons that you could learn from the photographs in terms of helping you do the dance? Were there things that you could learn?
No fluff.
No fluff.
No fluff. Yeah. You know, you look at the photographs, and you're not going to be. Well, firstly, you won't be wowed by huge jumps, maybe, but there is the simplicity of this community dancing together. There must be obvious, the things that go along with this community of communication, of understanding, of going out in unity. And that was helpful for Pastor Carly because that's what we talked about.
Right.
There's no flourish involved. Just do what was necessary and let the choreography speak for itself. And I think
so more than just sort of pedantic things like, oh no, see, her right arm is up further here, or it wasn't so much that, but more of statements of essence.
The meaning of the mean. As a matter of fact, we weren't too concerned with exactly where the right hand was, because it could be in the right place for the wrong meaning.
Right.
So I think what we learned was getting to the choreography through the meaning, rather than putting on the form and then attaching meaning to it.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because it actually gives me an opportunity to share something which I was really happy to see that you as curator shared on the opening text that's back there on the wall, which is a quote from Barbara Morgan where she wrote, "Primarily, I am after that instant of combustion when all the energies of the spirit are wonderfully coordinated with the action of the body." And of course, you took the instant of combustion as the title for the exhibit too, which is also, it's a very poetic phrase. What does it mean to you?
As a dancer, I'm looking for that myself when I'm on stage. I'm trying to go beyond the functioning of my body to form a shape, and I'm constantly trying to trigger that ignition that would that can't really be explained. And a lot of it comes with digging deep into a dance after you've learned the steps, so to speak. It takes time to maturate. Like Shikon, which I did 7 years ago. I'm thinking of, actually Jennifer was prodding me a little bit, but I'm thinking of starting to rehearse it again. And I'm sure I'm going to be in a really different place, personally and artistically. And it'll help me dig deeper into that moment, the times in that dance when you're not you anymore. It's profoundly something else that's happening.
So it sounds like, in a way, that you are looking for the same kind of instance in your performing that Morgan was looking for in her photography.
If I could go back to the Humphrey, I remember Doris Humphrey talked about she wanted the performances, her choreography to be real, to be about people, and so if I, as a performer, dig into who I am as a friend, or as a husband, as a father, then all the friends and husbands and wives and fathers who are sitting down, they may not understand the steps, but they'll go, wait, I get that. I understand something about that. And that's what I'm looking for as a performer, for sure. And when it happens, it's unbelievable.
Well, there's another part of the quote that I wanted to read also, because she went on to say that to make a literal photograph of a dance in a bare documentary spirit is to come out empty-handed.
Yeah.
A body in action may be calisthenics or sex appeal, but it is not necessarily dance.
Right.
Yeah. She said something has to happen.
Something has to happen.
So that something that has to happen is what she was capturing, and it sounds like it's what you're trying to capture also.
Yeah, and as an educator, as a dance educator, it's what I'm trying to get my students to understand and to embody as well. So what?
So you think you can dance?
No. No. Don't start me. But I think it was Hanya Holm that said something like, and she's here, I think, said something like, it makes no sense to count how many jumps you can do. And if I can add, it makes no sense to count how many turns you can do. If it says nothing, then so what?
Yeah.
If there's not something, if that something hasn't been said, then it is just calisthenics or gymnastics to music. But like I said, don't start me.
Now, what do you think about, one thing which we'll certainly explore more when Peggy and Murray talk in more depth about Pearl Primus, but I think one thing that's really interesting here to see is that in the 1930s and early 40s that Barbara Morgan was focusing her camera on dancers of African descent.
Yes.
And women, and what does that say? What does that tell us?
I think she was such a visionary. At a time when, I think it was Lester Horton that had his company out in
Los
Angeles having the first African-American company member. I mean, it was unheard of at the time of opportunities for African Americans and African American women. I thought it interesting a little bit that it wasn't after after Bennington had closed, and I think after maybe Hanya Holmes' company had closed in 1944, that people started looking around or looking into a larger circle, but she had been doing this for years prior, so I think Barbara Morgan was really forward-thinking in that regard. Here's the thing though, Pearl Primus was doing the same thing that Barbara Morgan was doing with her photography.
How so?
The whole essence, the instant of combustion, as we were rehearsing the pieces, we performed, well, of course, we performed it at Jacob's Pillow for this summer. I remember talking and encouraging the students that, okay, we have these rehearsals and you could map it out, 2 rehearsals per minute of dance or whatever. And I tried to help them understand that although the dances themselves were rigorous, they were hard, you want an oxygen tank when you were done, it was really difficult. But the harder part of the dance was what you had to bring to it and bring out of it. That was challenging. So I'm not sure if, okay, I think the fact that she was an African American woman was important, but I think more important might have been she was doing what Barbara Morgan wanted to do with her photography as well. It was just a marriage made in heaven, so to speak.
Yeah.
They were like-minded. I believe so.
We also haven't really said anything about, although he's on almost the center of this wall over here, about Merce Cunningham, and this is something which I guess you and the dancers here will be getting into in earnest this fall.
Yeah, in fact we've started rehearsing one of the events, and events are a compilation of excerpts from his dances that could be performed in any environment, not necessarily in a proscenium stage, although that can happen as well. And we started rehearsing a week before school began. Talk about instant of combustion. The piece demands multiple instances of combustion. Because there's no story, there's no dialogue, there's no narrative. So how does a performer determine how to perform? And in fact, he left it up to the performers to do that. He left it up to, because you're human, and the way you move, you're going to have to figure that out for his choreography. And then what about the audience? The audience is going to see, they're not going to be fed anything on a spoon. There's no boy meets girl, here you go. And so they're going to have to now find where they get instant of combustion watching the piece. It's very demanding on that level, not to mention the physical level. It's challenging physically, but it's also very challenging on meaning.
Well, it's remarkable to think, that here is Merce among these other pioneers, and that his work is still challenging today, as Doris Humphreys is, as Jose Limones is, as Pearl Primus is.
Yeah.
So these are all, even though they are historical founding fathers and mothers of modern dance, it's not something that we can say, oh, well, we know how to do that now.
Right, it's museum pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that but that's besides the current location considered. I'm performing in the Cunningham piece.
So you're trying to find the.
I'm trying to
find a center.
And I've got to say that over the past couple of years, I've been, as an artist and an educator, sort of questioning what I teach a little bit. And I think I know where it's coming from, and I'll tell you what. But I think I've been so inundated with performers wanting things now. You look on TV and you see the shows and it's all now. There's not an
We're getting started again now.
Oh gosh, you see. Okay, I'll try to make this smaller. And as I've been doing the Cunningham work, we've had to take class and learn what's behind it. And I started seeing the students who were dancing with me. And one of the comments that Banu, who's teaching it to us, one day in class she was teaching us something, she says, this isn't even Cunningham, this is modern, just this what I'm teaching. Because some of the students couldn't do it. They couldn't figure out where their weight was or how to have the core stability while their torsos
So just the mechanics of it they were having.
Right.
Yeah.
And she says, this isn't Cunningham technique, this is modern dance. And it clicked to me and I thought, what I'm teaching is valid today as much as it was. And I sort of had to kick myself for feeling insecure about trying to keep up with the young'uns and, teach the fast thing and, that what they needed, the fundamentals, the essence of moving, the reason why and how, and that will carry them on to the contemporary stuff and whatever else they want to do. So, what was your question? I see you when you start me.
On December 2nd and 3rd at Balfour Auditorium, we'll be able to see how well you succeeded at that, right?
Yeah, how about that? Yeah.
So I think it is time for us to cede our stools to the next guests, Peggy and Murray Schwartz, who are going to dig a little bit deeper into Pearl Primus and talk about this marvelous book that they have put together. But in the meantime, thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
This is very exciting. Thank you for coming. Everyone who's here. There are so many people I want to thank, and it's a little bit risky to name names if I leave anyone out. It's excitement and not lack of appreciation. But I particularly want to thank, let me look at my list. Of course, Niels and Kara Morgan for this incredible gift. They've been thanked already, but that's from us, from the dance program, as well as the museum, and we're just, well, you've seen what it's meaning in the life of this institution, yes. And it's actually already, parts of it have been loaned to Jacob's Pillow, there'll be a loan to Williams College coming along, and it really is going to be well used, at least regionally, if not beyond. So Niels and Kara, Julie Hayes, Dean, Humanities and Fine Arts, thank you for your support all along. Loretta has done just yeoman's share of getting this organized, and Justin Griswold and Eva First from the gallery. Constance Vallis Hill, who's the co-curator, she's not here this evening, but with Paul Dennis and Paul for being my incredible partner in crime through so many of these events, and getting things organized and seeing to the immediacy of the work and performing the work and coaching students. And it's been just a remarkable grouping of people who just keep coming back together, keep working together. The way in which I think actually, before I go into what we're going to do, Murray and I will each read a very little bit from the book. We won't keep you seated here too much longer. A lot of you have been here a long time. But I want to tell you a little bit about, because the book is about Pearl Primus, because our lives have been so taken up. The book is called The Dance Claimed Me. Well, at some point, Pearl Primus claimed us, and then we're just, so it goes back a long time, our relationship with her and the connection. This exhibit goes back many years. A woman named Janet Soares, who was head of the dance program at Barnard College, said to me she knew I was collecting material on Pearl Primus. This was about 1994 or 5. And she said, you know, Lloyd Morgan, that's Niels' father, has some negatives of Pearl Primus. Oh, I didn't thank Stuart Kane, who worked very closely with me on an earlier exhibit of Barbara Morgan's back in 2001, too. Janet said Lloyd Morgan has negatives that of Pearl Primus that have never been developed, that have not been seen. Maybe he would share these with you, maybe you would go see him. So, very long story short, that did lead to an exhibit in 2001. 2 or 3 years ago, I'm not sure exactly, maybe 2 years ago, Paul sends me an email, said I got an email from Niels Morgan and from the Morgan estate, and they're looking to a place to house, to give a gift, make a gift to a college of images from the estate as they deal with Barbara Morgan's work. Again, long story short, so that led to conversations. Paul sent that to me. I got in touch with Niels, told him about the earlier work, and that led to meetings and discussions and to what we see here, and just a really joyful relationship. It's not just about the images. There's friendship, there's collegiality, there's artistry that's shared, there's excitement, there's an ongoing legacy that we're so proud to be able to continue to foster with Morgans and for the Morgan family. And it goes back to Pearl Primus, to our connection with Pearl Primus. So she has her hand in so many things still, in very mysterious ways, and that's in part that's what the book is about. Just sort of how she functioned and how her life influenced and rippled out and radiated and touched so many aspects of American culture, and in such an understated and kind of subterranean way. This image she loved, but she insisted there was real mystery in Morgan's work. She said the lighting did not account for all the shadows. And that Barbara Morgan caught a ghost shadow in her. Talk about the instant of combustion. And Pearl's, and she insisted on that. And for the life of me, though, I can't remember which, I don't know enough about photography. David, maybe you'll be able to look at it to see which shadow is not represented by light. I mean, so anyway, it's just very rich it's just thrilling to see these here. I'll read just a few very brief passages that have to do with some of the images here. And the first one I'll read is Negro Speaks of Rivers. There are 2 of them here, and there are several more in the other room. So one of the things that Niels Niels and Carol were very concerned with was that this all be used as teaching material. So I think to show how I've described these and work to analysis of the dance makes it sort of what the dialogue is with the work itself, shows indicates the possibility for research that comes from a collection like this. So, Primus's earliest works were considered protest dancers and the dances, and they were in the tradition of what was happening in modern dance at the time of the New Dance Group, and that's a whole other history that would be interesting if we had more time. But Negro Speaks of Rivers was set to the Langston Hughes poem of the same name. Pearl remembered meeting Hughes on a segregated train, where she told him about some of the work she'd been thinking of creating, and he talked about his poetry, in particular about Negro Speaks of Rivers. While Hughes was talking about his dream and travels in Africa, Pearl began to visualize the movement that became this seminal dance. Margaret Lloyd described the Negro Speaks of Rivers with its undulating rhythms, deep flowing currents of movement, and whirlpool spins. The pale soles flash, the brown toes clutch and grasp, the dark fingers spread wide, and the whole body sings, I've known rivers ancient as the world, and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep, like the rivers. Throughout her life, when Pearl recited this poem, the gestures of her hands and eyes and the resonance of her voice would mirror the physical energy with which she first created and performed the work. Her performances and restagings demonstrated her complete command of technical theater, from lighting design down to the smallest movement details. The gold and bronze highlighting of her dark skin suggested the texture of the river itself. Even the tiniest gesture, from the cast of the eye to the subtle pulsing rise and fall onto half toe and back to the heels, enacted the river's flow, the current carrying its charge. Choosing a poem that had personal meaning and suggested movement possibilities was right in the mainstream of the modern dance aesthetic of the times. And we comment on that because she's known primarily in contemporary work as an African dancer. But her work, she always considered herself a modern dancer who also included and embraced the African work. And one other dance I'll read you about, Rock Daniel. There are two images here and then two more in the back room. And what's really incredible to me is that, as far as I know, these are the only existing images that document this work. There are no other photographs, and there's nothing on film. So any analysis that we were able to provide of these works in this book come from the Morgan images, for which we're so grateful. They're so magnificent. A handwritten program note calls Rock Daniel a lesson in jazz. Dancing to the music of Lucky Melinda's orchestra, Come Out Tonight, Rock Daniel, Won't You Come Out Tonight, sung by Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Pearl forms exuberant and joyful swirls, big smile flashing. With her head tilted way back, arms and fingers stretched at her sides, expressive palms facing the audience, she conveys a contagious energy. A moment captured by dance photographer Barbara Morgan shows her with knees bent, perched on her right big toe, her left foot just off the floor, as her joy and delight seem to lift her to the heavens. In another Morgan photo, her knees bend to one side as her skirt twists around her and flies up and back. Her arms lift at the elbows, and as her hands cross her chest, again there is a flash of a palm tilted toward the audience as her fingers spread and reach. Her head tilts downward as a big smile breaks across her face. With her eyes closed, we feel her sensing the inward pulse of the exuberant rhythms of the orchestra. She was costumed simply in a flowing skirt extending just below the knee, a striped top bearing her mid-torso, and gold hoop earrings, and her hair was pulled back, secured by a large flower. Adelaide Kerr wrote that in this dance, Pearl blends the hallelujah gestures she saw in Harlem churches and the jitterbug she learned in Harlem ballrooms. So thank you again, Niels and Cara and Barbara, for these images, because there'd be no way to have any record ongoing of some of these works, and that not just the Primus work, obviously, but many of these others. Murray.
Well, as Peggy indicated, Pearl Primus lived in many worlds, and we were privileged to begin to see how they connected, and in fact to begin through the work that Peggy was doing and through the writing of this book to further those connections. She lived a good part of her life after the 1950s in and out of academic institutions, as well as in and out of performance. And so our lives coincided when she, shortly after her husband Percival Ward died suddenly in a performance, applied for a position at SUNY Buffalo when I happened to be Dean of Interdisciplinary Colleges, received a 35-page resume in the mail from someone named Pearl Primus, and I brought it home and said to Peggy, "Look at this." And she said, "Hire her," which we did, and for several years Pearl Primus was the, as was called then, the master of an interdisciplinary college for minority students, and did an absolutely magnificent job at that. And when we came to the university and the 5 colleges in 1983, we were fortunate to be able to arrange for her to follow with a 5-college appointment, which she had until almost the last few years of her life. So she spent a lot of time in this valley and had many wonderful experiences and influenced many people here. At the same time, she was living a very national and international life, even getting the Presidential Medal of the Arts and many other awards that recognized her achievements. So we had agreed that I would read a few passages from her time in the 5 colleges. But as I was sitting there, I changed my mind. And I didn't even tell Peggy, because I'd like you to get a feel for another part of Pearl Primus's life. She was a great writer, and she was, from a very young age in high school, a poet. And she was extraordinarily eloquent in everything she did. In fact, her presentation of herself was part of her eloquence. And she wrote a great poem when she was about to leave Africa in 1950, after spending 18 months traveling mostly in West and Central Africa, learning and mastering the dances in villages and regions of African cultures. It's a remarkable poem, and a little bit long, but you'll appreciate it. Now that I prepare to leave you, Mother, now that I fold the curtains and pack away the many little things which would make a home, I feel my heart will burst inside me, and my tears will crash the walls of reason. It is not good to pack away wet things. Now that I prepare to leave you, Mother, the crimson bougainvillea blooms redder still. Each brilliant flower smiles upon the branch. The birds sing longer, clearer, sweeter. And a plant I threw away for dead put out new leaves. Oh, Mother, now that I prepare to leave, it's mango time. Remember that first mango time I spent with you, a child among 100 toys? Memories are hanging from each branch this mango time. Pineapples will soon be full, and a little guava tree beside the house, it was so small when we moved in, now prepares its first fruit as I prepare to leave. As I wipe and pack away my books, the voices of my brothers take on new meanings. The patient laughter of my sisters forms into words. The marketplaces shout their living songs, and thatched houses stand in stubborn silence among new concrete and hard stone. I could pack faster, but the earth clings firmly to my feet. The red earth, brush it as I may, holds to my feet. The palm trees have wrapped their arms around me. The drums and winds have caught the rhythms of my heart, caught them in a magic web of dreams, invisible. And from the work left rotting in the sun and rain, the leopard of sorrow has jumped upon my back, sinking its teeth and claws into my flesh. Oh, Mother, speak. Tell me you love me. Call me with your soft voice. Call me once. Oh, Mwale, it would be hard to go in mango time. leaving the guava ripening on the tree, shutting the brilliant flowers from my eyes, hearing the voices of my kin fade in the night. It will be hard to go, leaving my heart caught in the web of winds and drums. I know that I can never scrape the red clay from my feet, or tear the leopard of sorrow from my back, or dry the tears which fall upon my face as I prepare to leave you, Mother. And her writings have mostly not been published. We put as many as we could into this book, but there's more to be done, and we're already talking about another project which would collect her poetry, her other writings, and her visual images, and some of the few films that exist. So there's more to come. So, thanks for being here. If you want more of the book, go ahead.
Peggy and Murray will be at the desk signing books and answering questions, and Paul and Norton are here as well. So we didn't have a Q&A period, but let's keep this informal and just go right up to them, and we'll keep the conversation going. We'll move the chairs away shortly, and so giving you a bit more time to view